afternoon and good morning to everybody that's attending. My name is Robert. I manage the scientific partnerships for Labster in the UK, and I'm going to be taking you through a short webinar today to give you some insight into where Labster positions itself, hopefully giving you an idea about the challenges that we're helping to solve. And by the end of today's 20-minute session, you should have a good idea about who we are as a company. Beyond that, feel free to get in touch with any of us to schedule a meeting where we can go into more depth. But yes, I'm going to be taking us through some slides today. The agenda of today's presentation is to give you an initial idea on our background as a company and what our vision is for the future, and then give an introduction to the simulations and what challenges they're solving and the variety of ways they can be integrated into your courses to give you some options and flexibility. Questions can be asked within the webinar platform, and I'll address those at the end. So we started our life back in 2013 at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark. And it was our co-founder, Mads, who was a PhD student at the time, and he was in charge of lab introductions. He had students joining the university from all over Denmark and overseas, and they'd had different amounts of access to labs in the past. And so we wanted to build a platform that enabled him to quickly identify where they were facing challenges and then give the students the tools themselves to progress against those challenges, with the end goal of getting all of his students onto the same level. So the initial impetus for Labster was about identifying and closing knowledge gaps. But since 2013, we've developed the platform in such a way to address other challenges such as student engagement and skill mastery. Since 2013, we've built out over 150 simulations now across the various sciences, ranging from high school all the way through to master's degree. And the students and teachers using Labster, using these realistic simulations that closely mirror the wet lab, have noticed numerous benefits, due mainly to the fact that they're so interactive, and this is a major factor that makes Labster so unique. We are interactive. The students have to progress through every step of the simulation. And because of that, they've noticed numerous benefits. They've noticed the ability to coach students on lab safety best practices, ingraining habits and behaviors in the students prior to them entering the real lab. So the goal here is really to maximize the amount of effective lab time you have with the students by preparing them beforehand. We're not designed to replace the physical lab. We're designed to work with traditional teaching methods for a maximum impact. And that's what we're looking to do here. Closely related to that, but looking at the student's learning curve, what we're trying to do is allow the students to become adept at key processes and techniques before they enter the lab. So taking out an element of that learning curve out of the time-pressured lab environment and into the online space, where they can learn through repetition and learn through their mistakes. So when they do come in the lab, they're more prepared. They know they're spending less time on the setup and more time doing the experiment, perhaps changing variables and strengthening their understanding of the relationship between cause and effect, or consulting their teacher and getting more out of the teacher's expertise and deepening their understanding that way. The third is about engaging different types of learners from a pedagogical standpoint. So we understand that different students learn in different ways. Some respond very well to a theoretical approach, having a textbook in front of them and working through at their own pace that way. But others need to get practical with concepts to fully understand them. So we give the students the ability to build molecular models, change variables and chemical reactions, and go into more granular levels of detail in physiological models. We're trying to take concepts and theory that is static on a textbook page and make it engaging and exciting for the students. I can speak from my experience and then kind of give you some anecdotes on where Labster is helping right now. I speak with a lot of teachers in the UK that are perhaps undergraduate professors, and they were already very well aware of knowledge gaps in students joining the university from perhaps abroad or from different schools around the country, and they were aware that there were going to be some variance in skill and knowledge amongst the cohort. But because of the effect of COVID, the delivery of their teaching has fundamentally changed. And so there's a worry that perhaps knowledge gaps are going to be bigger or last for a longer period of time. And so they're using Labster to pick up some of the slack, automate that process, allowing them to free up time where they can be strategic as a teacher. There are also others that are motivated by providing students with stability in terms of the learning resources that they have. So they're looking for an accessible solution for the students that they can access through their laptop anytime, anywhere. There are those that are very focused on driving student engagement and making sure that they're adding as much value to the student's university experience as possible. And we're helping them take their courses to the next level. We're also helping those that are looking to improve conceptual understanding and the skill levels in their students. I have a short video here that gives you an overview of the 3D lab space that all of the simulations take place in, and I'll talk through some of the key features that are embedded. So as I've mentioned, we've built out over 150 simulations now. Each is a gamified case study that roughly covers the content of 1 to 2 lectures and a lab practical, and takes around 45 minutes on average to complete. Each begins with a real-world scenario and a problem that needs to be solved. This is one of the elements of pedagogy that we use to maximize intrigue in the students. We find that it proves to be a very firm basis for the students' learning. We layer multiple choice questions and theory on top of that base to improve their conceptual understanding throughout the course of the simulation. You can see here we're interacting with equipment that you might not find in your school lab, and that's one of the great benefits to the online experience that we're providing. Multiple choice questions are graded, and those grades are automatically integrated into your learning management system. You also get data on student performance with respect to how much time they spend on questions and how much time they spend looking at theory prior to answering questions. And this data-driven approach allows you to be very strategic in where knowledge gaps are and addressing them. In terms of interacting with the lab space, we're just pointing and clicking and navigating around that way. Hopefully that short video gives you an initial idea about the experience we're providing to students. What I'll do now is just take you to the faculty resource page, which is essentially the simulation catalog. And if you bear with me a second, I'll just take us there. If this is of interest to you, if it looks like something that perhaps could be a good fit for you and your students, then one of our sales reps would be more than happy to have a conversation with you and go into depth into the simulations and provide you with some insight to help you judge to a deeper level whether it is a good fit or not. And beyond that, what we usually do, because we understand that it takes a long time to assess the fit and understand whether it's something you would like or not, we usually then give you trial access to the simulation catalog itself for you to share within your schools. Returning to my slides and talking through the last few points on Labster and how it can be integrated. Really, we position ourselves as a long-term value-adding solution. We want to work with universities over the long term to enhance and work with their traditional teaching methods to enhance the experience and education for the students. So really, we focus on the latter two use cases here. The use of Labster in a flipped classroom scenario and as a pre-lab exercise. In a flipped classroom scenario, a simulation is introduced prior to a week's worth of teaching to allow the students to become familiar with the theory, familiar with the processes and the techniques surrounding it and the real-world application. So when they go into the classroom, they're engaged with what the teacher is saying. They're not just encountering ideas for the first time. The teacher is not speaking to a brick wall of students. And so the students ask more informative questions of the teacher and they get more out of their expertise. The other, along the same vein, but in relation to the practical lab, we're helping students prepare in terms of the processes and techniques they're going to be doing, the equipment they're going to be using, so that when they go in the lab, as I mentioned before, spending less time on the setup and more time doing the experiment. We understand that the lab time you have with the students is the gold standard of the education you're providing. It's what they're going to use to progress into industry or further education. That being said, we are helping out distance learning programs that are looking for an online lab course. It is an area where we can also add value, but really this is where we position ourselves. There's studies that have been done independently to show this effect of using Labster with traditional teaching methods for a maximum impact, and also the ability of Labster to help close knowledge gaps, increase motivation and confidence levels in the lab. Those the more intangible but very important variables that you want to measure in students. One of the challenges I frequently hear is that teachers are spending the bulk of their time on lower achievers in the class, and so they don't have the capacity to challenge the middle of the road students and the higher achievers. So what we look to do is bring everybody to the same or as close to the same level as possible, so the teacher can drive forward as many students in terms of their progress as possible. We're innovating in a few different ways right now. We're committed to making all of the simulations accessible for deaf and blind students. That will reach completion in the next 6 months or so. And we are developing features in the simulations which will allow you to customize their delivery and also produce lab reports or extract data and test it against a hypothesis, facilitate a discussion amongst the students as well. So those are the directions in which we are heading. That concludes my short introduction. I'll now welcome any questions from the audience. Just a reminder to those attending, if you have any questions, please ask them within the platform and I can address them for you. If all questions can be asked in English, that would help. Only speak English, I'm afraid. Ramsey, I'm afraid I only speak English, so your question posed in French, I'm afraid I can't address that. We do have a French team that I can connect you with if you'd like to speak with them. We do the ecology section of the simulation catalog is in the process of being expanded. We do have a selection, but really the focus of the catalog as it stands today is on biology and chemistry, and we're focusing on expanding engineering as well next. Ecology will be an area of focus in the future. If you are interested, it may be useful to have a meeting with one of our team and they can take you through the ecology catalog. I believe we do have a simulation covering specimen sampling. Yes, but as I mentioned, I think it would be good for you to judge the fit of the ecology catalogue yourself if there is interest. If that is the case, the next step would be a meeting with one of my team. Just a reminder that if there are any questions, I can answer them for you now. Just a reminder that all questions, can they please be asked in English, and I can address them for you. A last reminder for if there are any questions, please ask them in English and I can address them. If there are no more questions, I'm going to leave the webinar there. Thank you very much for your attendance today. We will be hosting a webinar at the same time next week and addressing some of the same challenges that labs are facing. Thanks again and have a pleasant afternoon.